If you ever tried to document a process for your team and thought there has to be a better way than this, you're not alone. I've spent countless hours helping teams document workflows, onboard new hires, and reduce the constant back and forth that happens when documentation isn't clear. Automation documentation tools have come a long way, and we're going to walk through some of the best options out there. This is based on real functionality and not marketing hype. So, automation documentation matters because it saves time by eliminating repeat explanations, reduces errors by giving you a clear process, and it scales knowledge so processes don't live in one person's head, so you don't rely on tribal knowledge. The problem is that traditional documentation is slow to create and even slow to update. So we're going to take a look at some of the best automation documentation tools, such as Guidde that you see here, and run through which tool works best for which person. So if you want the too long didn't read version, Guidde is best for visual multi-step workflows, and it turns screen recordings into polished, step-by-step video guides. Makes it very easy. Scribe is better for click-by-click internal processes if there's a long chain of commands to complete the task. It also auto-creates written guides as you work. Trainual is better for onboarding and SOPs, and it centralizes your training and standardizes processes, so there's not as many variables as your onboarding new hires. Process Street focuses on execution-focused workflows, and it turns documentation into actionable checklists. Breaks it down into steps 1 through 5, nice and easy. Tango is better for quick, fast guides, and it works because it has a quick step capture with minimal setup. It's quick, easy, and to the point. Loom is better when you need explanations with a lot of context. It's great for walkthroughs and async teams, so everyone knows why they're doing what they're doing, and they get all the details. Notion is best for knowledge organization, and is almost like a vault. It is a central hub for storing all documentation and makes organizing all your plans very easy. We have Guidde, which is one of the stronger tools I've used for automation documentation. Guidde really shines when you're dealing with visual, multi-step workflows. You record your screen while you complete a task, and Guidde turns that into a clean, structured guide, no pun intended, with narration, captions, and clear steps. What I really like is that it lets you document processes in real time. Instead of saying you'll write the documentation later, you capture it as you're doing the work. This makes sure everything's accurate and up to date. It's especially useful when you're onboarding and making customer-facing documentation. Clarity is probably the biggest factor there. Where Guidde is my pick for visual walkthroughs, Scribe is what I use for click-by-click written documentation. Scribe automatically captures screenshots and steps as you work, and then turns them into a guide that you can edit and share immediately. I've used it for internal workflows like CRM updates, admin tasks, and even recurring operational processes. It's fast, practical, and cuts out a lot of the manual work when you're putting together like a PDF training guide. It saves you a lot of time when you need to clip every little detail so someone can follow your work easily. Now we'll take a look at Trainual. Trainual is a different kind of tool. It's not about capturing actions in the moment. It's about organizing trainings and SOPs. I've used it to standardize onboarding and make sure everyone is learning the same processes the same way. If consistency and structure really matter, this is where Trainual fits best. It's especially useful when you're onboarding a new hire and they may be working in multiple different roles or cross-training. This makes it very easy to stay consistent with what they're learning and make sure you don't have any gaps in knowledge between a manager and their team. Tribal knowledge is the one thing that really hurts when people leave the workplace. Next up is Process Street. When documentation needs to drive execution, that's when you can turn to Process Street. Instead of just explaining a process, it turns it into a checklist with action items that people actually follow. It's very useful for recurring workflows like reporting, financial tasks, and client deliverables when you need the same format and the same information and you just need the data updated in real time. The big advantage here is accountability. The process doesn't just exist, it gets done because it's very clearly laid out and very easy to stay up to date with new data. Here are some of the common use cases, such as anything for ISO 9001, where you have to maintain strict compliance, documentation management, when you need to make sure everything is where it should be, and everything's easy to find and can be updated quickly. SOP software and policy management are also good use cases for Process Street. Two lighter tools that are worth looking at are Loom and Tango. Loom is great when writing something out would take forever, like when you're coding, or if there's just a ton of information. A short video walkthrough can save a ton of time, as you guys see now. especially for remote or async teams where it can be more difficult to share handwritten notes and large information packets. Tango, on the other hand, is ideal when you need fast, no-frills documentation. It captures steps automatically and creates simple guides that are easy to update. Tango is what you need when you need something really quick, simple, short, sweet, and to the point. It may not have the most detail, but it's the quickest, easiest way to create documentation for everyone to follow. The big question, though, is how do I choose the right tool? If the process is visual and complex, I would probably go with Guidde. It is typically the best all-around tool. If it's internal and step-based, then Scribe or Tango usually makes sense because it gives you step-by-step instructions and they're relatively quick. Trainual is a solid option if the tool is primarily going to be used for training and standardization, especially with new hires. And Process Street typically stands out when execution is crucial. When you need a deliverable action item list, Process Street can be the way to go. The documentation tools aren't really about creating more documentation, they're about condensing it, making documentation easier to create. And automation tools aren't about creating more documentation, they're about condensing it, making documentation easier to create, maintain, and update. And of course, you need it to be easy to use as well. When you choose the right tool for the job, and the tool that will benefit your team the most, documentation stops being a chore and starts becoming a productivity advantage.